Attorney General Merrick Garland in the hot seat yesterday for hours as House Republicans, including our next guest, grill him on the alleged weaponization of his DOJ and whether it targeted, in this case, a Virginia dad protesting his daughter's assault.
You sent a memo on October 4th, 2021, directing the FBI and U.S. attorney offices to address, quote, harassment, end quote, of school boards. The White House asked for specific threats, and one of the examples was Scott Smith. Yes or no? Has it been rescinded?
The memo was intended to have meetings within 30 days.
Has it been rescinded?
The 30 days have finished. Nothing has happened in more than a year and a half with respect to that
But it
memo.
has not been rescinded. It has not been pulled back.
Nothing to rescind.
Joining us right now with more from that hearing, House Judiciary Committee member Congressman Chip Roy. We know how that went in frustratingly. What's your takeaway after seeing him for 6-7 hours answer the questions that were very much on your mind and your caucus's mind?
Yeah, good morning, Brian. Well, I mean, first of all, you just played a clip where I was trying to expose the extent to which the Department of Justice and the White House was colluding with the National School Board Association to target parents, to politicize the Department of Justice and target parents who dared to question the wisdom of a school board, in this case of Scott Smith, whose daughter, as I think many know now, was assaulted in a bathroom in a public school. And Scott just wanted to protect his daughter, and he's the one who gets made into a so-called domestic terrorist by this Department of Justice. And the Attorney General refused to answer the question. Right when he said, and then when I pushed on him and I said, hey, why have you not rescinded the memo? He said, well, there's nothing to rescind. Yes, there is. You took a position to target parents. You should rescind that. But more importantly, in the early part of that hearing, he was refusing to acknowledge the extent to which the DOJ has been slow walking, very obviously, going after Hunter Biden. It was clear. Hunter Biden's on Burisma. They didn't want to go after those issues. And I asked him point blank at the end, I said, look, don't tax cases go through Main Justice? He didn't want to answer that. He goes, oh, you're talking about Hunter Biden. I said, no, I just asked you a simple question. Do not tax cases go through Main Justice? He didn't want to answer it. He kind of had to admit, yes, they do. We know what happened here, Brian. We all get the joke. The Attorney General worked with the White House to slow walk looking into Hunter Biden because they know full well what's at stake.
And if it wasn't for your investigation and led by James Comer and a couple of whistleblowers, we would not know a fraction of what we do right now. And it's not good for those guys. Meanwhile, yesterday it was about 3,000 to 4,000 illegal immigrants who streamed into Eagle Pass. Yeah. I've never seen images like this since 2 years ago when the Haitians were underneath the bridge. How much worse can this get? And do you know anyone that thinks this is tolerable for our country?
No, Brian, and I mean, it's so devastating to the people of Texas, devastating to parents who've lost their loved ones to fentanyl poisoning. It's devastating to the migrants who are getting sold into the sex trafficking trade, who are getting abused on the journey. And now we see it's not just Texas, New York. We're seeing what's happening there. And look, Democrats are getting shouted down in New York. New Yorkers are getting tired of it. The president is obviously failing at his job. It's purposeful. Alejandro Mayorkas failing at his job. We should impeach him. We should defund his salary. But here's the critical part. We should, as Republicans, send a strong message to the Senate that we're not going to advance funding of government without dealing with the border. And we had a proposal last week that would have said, hey, we're going to cut spending by 8%. We're going to attach H.R. 2. We're going to send a good Department of Defense funding bill over there that gets rid of the social engineering and jam it down their throats. Unfortunately, some of my colleagues didn't agree. We're trying to get there. Yesterday, we had a good conference meeting. Hopefully, we will come to some agreement and do that because we got to highlight for the American people that it is Democrats who would rather risk shutting down the government rather than shutting down the border, which is what should happen.
So you got guys like Ken Buck says, I'm not voting for it. Yeah, Matt Rosendale go, I told him not voting for a CR. Chip, you are as principled a conservative as there is in Washington. If you're there negotiating, knowing you're not getting everything you want, you have to get something to the Senate. Do they know that their majorities in the balance here?
Well, look, these guys are friends of mine, and look, they are principled trying to fight to move it as far as they can to cut spending. The American people agree with us on that. But in my view, we have to send a strong message to the Senate to set the negotiating.
Yes.
We also have to get to 218 votes to try to get the biggest win we can. And for me, getting significant cuts and border security like H.R. 2 would be a monumental win. Yesterday, some progress was made. We spent the last 2 days sitting in the bowels of the Capitol with whiteboards and looking up numbers. And You know, we made a lot of progress getting agreement. I hope we'll get to 218, but I don't know that we're there yet. But we need to send something to the Senate because it is very clear Democrats have no interest in making changes if we don't force them. It's our job as Republicans to unite and force them.
So the word is you're going to work through the weekend to do this. I would hope you guys would have come back in the summer to get your appropriations bill done. You demanded regular order. It hasn't happened yet. But right now's not the time to point fingers. But in the big picture, your job is to get something forward and show that you are responsible enough to run a chamber of Congress. And if you don't, what will that do to the chances of you keeping that majority? It'll be devastating if there's a shutdown.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the shutdown is less the question. That'd be more devastating if Republicans don't unite and send a message to the American people about what we're fighting for. We got to send something over to the Senate that cuts spending, secures the border, make sure our troops are funded, make sure our vets are funded at the right levels. But we've got to cut spending. We have $2 trillion of deficit this year, Brian. $2 trillion. We have borders that are wide open. The president doesn't care. Democrats are MIA. Republicans are the only ones having the real debate in this town. So we've just got to try to force unity. But remember, we have 221 people because we had somebody resign. Steve Scalise is battling cancer. So our numbers are getting pretty thin. We've got to figure out how to get 218 to do our job. There's no excuses here. We should have done our job this summer. We shouldn't have left. We should have done the appropriations bills. Frankly, that's on the leadership here. But we're trying to fight right now to hold the numbers down and do our job to secure the border. That's what I'm going to throw every ounce of my energy into. Show
America what America would look like if you guys had the White House and the Senate, and then let America decide. Don't make it easy for Democrats. Congressman Chip Roy, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.